It looks amazing up there, though.
Yeah, it does. I wouldn't mind going up there either.
I think that would be cool. Even if it meant that we got kicked out and that was it.
It's worth it if we get kicked out.
Last year, David, honestly, I could not.
No, nobody can visualize.
Yeah.
That's why we do tours.
Yeah.
This place is amazing.
So up here is used to be the projection room.
When you lose everything, you find yourself.
Yes.
In this world, there are secrets. No scientist, explorer, or researcher has discovered all of them. There are many people who think they understand how extraordinary this world really is. And we want to tell them they're not even close.
Exactly as involved in the act of ghost hunting. We'll discuss the basic theories, the natural phenomena behind certain reports, the pitfalls, the equipment, and the techniques and etiquette that we assume in all we do. So let's begin. As Kathy already mentioned, our investigations usually establish that 8 out of 10 cases reported to us are faux hauntings and are usually attributed to environmental issues, issues that many people don't realise exist within a natural living environment. Rule number 1. Only once we've ruled out the normal can we entertain the notion of anything being paranormal. But perhaps before going any further, we should start by defining the most important parameter. What exactly do we mean by paranormal? By definition, the word paranormal is a compound word consisting of a root and an adjective. Para, a root word meaning contrary, and an adjective, normal. And literally, together, contrary to the normal. But of course, the age-old question is, what is normal?
Well, before going any further, first of all, let's contemplate a very basic yet, well, important idea. Many of you are probably familiar with the term ghost hunter, right, and paranormal investigator. But how many of you guys actually think they're simply different, or are they the same thing? So what is the difference? Ghost hunters, first of all, are basically enthusiasts who are really simply out to try and capture evidence of a supernatural occurrence, which is fine. These guys, they kind of live for the day, and they can, present evidence to the world. They proving ghosts, if they really exist, is there an afterlife, that kind of thing. And some people make a pretty penny while doing so. It's safe to say, though, that most of paranormal researchers start out with that intention. That's where it starts. Paranormal investigators, however, differ a little bit, and that's that they provide help, basically, to people who are, in fear, experiencing this stuff. The situations are resolved by essentially locating the source, whether it's paranormal or not, and advising the clients, basically, as trying to, in a means to correct the problem. In short, a ghost hunter aims primarily to deal with the dead, while a paranormal investigator's priority, we got to work with the living.
So, in other words, we have to treat everybody with kid gloves when it comes to this kind of stuff. Even if you feel as though you've been pushed, physically pushed by an unknown force, the investigator must remain calm at all times and simply carry on as if nothing has happened. There are other very important factors that must be taken into consideration when dealing with the public, but the most important is that confidentiality and respect. Many people may feel uncomfortable about letting friends, family, and neighbors know that they believe they're being haunted. And it's a factor that also must be accepted and accounted for. And one reason for us as investigators not to show up with paranormal investigators written all over our van. Not a good thing.
I wanted a van like that.
I know.
That's a good thing.
Another such anomaly is what they call sparkles. And although these are easily discernible with the naked eye, they're really hard to capture on camera simply because the camera flash just cancels them right out. This phenomenon is generally a series of very bright pinpoint lights that seem to dance in the air, which strangely tend to be found in greater quantities around doorways. So, another common anomaly, and generally one that causes a gasp when discovered, is the mist. The following photograph illustrates the phenomenon quite clearly. The anomalies highlighted so far are generally translucent, although other light anomalies can be, opaque in appearance, and some of these are shaped like beans, and some like ribbons. The following images are a typical example of that phenomenon. Doug likes to explain this, but I'll get out of the way.
Okay, interactive time now, please. This should be a lot of fun. Photo number 1. What do you see? Any takers?
Shadow.
Okay, we got shadow. Anybody else?
Can everybody see what we're looking at here? Okay, no more takers. Shadows was the only one, right?
All right.
Quite often, long exposures can give the impression of ghostly apparitions. This can occur when the flash has not been switched on and the shutter remains open to obtain the maximum exposure for the shot. Photo 2. What do you see?
Car, okay.
Good. You're all wrong.
Oh, you're quite somewhat very
Close. Close, very close.
Okay, go for it. Upper left of this picture, there appears to be a small floating reddish globe of bright length with some sort of pseudopod extended. Closer inspection reveals it to be a stop sign in the distance, several hundred feet beyond the area illuminated with the flash. Street signs are designed to be highly reflective, and even though this one was in the distance, it reflected enough of the flash to create a light anomaly. Photo number 3. Camera strap. Example given shows a camera strap passing in front of the lens. Examples of other close objects include fingers and shirt jacket sleeves. Now also, a little note at the bottom there, partially covered flash can also produce some great shadow effects. Put your finger in front of the flash and see what happens. It's quite interesting. Right, next one. Photo 4. What do you see?
No, we're reading.
Okay, so we got moisture. Anybody else?
Here's a hint of colour. Do you know what? You're getting good simply because nobody said ghosts.
Yep.
So,
Oh, look, it's
alright,
an
go for
energy.
it. Let them know. Alright. Many orbs of received photographs are caused by either dust or moisture. The easiest way to eliminate dust from your conclusion is by watching the air when the camera flashes. Dust is very visible when the flash is triggered. Moisture can be eliminated by reading the relative humidity and the dew point of the air. This one's simply pollen. You can usually tell that by the colours that's given off in this one. So a dry atmosphere will contain less moisture droplets. Photo 5.
I bet they'll get this.
You'll have to say yes or no because I can't see. No? Yes? Hello? There's nobody out there. I told you there dead people out there.
Which tends to eliminate the natural causes previously discussed. Far be it from us to advocate one specific camera over another. However, we certainly can point you in the right direction as far as which type to purchase. The 3 common types of digital still cameras on the market today are the compact digital. This is a very inexpensive option available to the investigator, usually in the $80 to $250 range. It's easy to operate, great to slip into your pocket or purse. The only reservation I have with using a compact digital camera is that due to the close lens,
No matter what line of thought you feel drawn to, doesn't really matter. The possibility of disrupting the natural EMF patterns within the location They just can't be discounted, and remains the primary reason why it is so important for paranormal investigators to complete their due diligence before concluding the case. So important.
Shattered, and then, you know, when we tried to recreate that, I think we broke most of my glasses, because I have like 3 right now, so we couldn't recreate that, and things that sort of defy physics like that. The one that got me, though, was when I actually got to see what was in the house. And I was outside with a friend one night, and it was a cold night, and we were sitting in the car and with the motor running, and my dad was staying there at the time. He's a musician too, and he travels, and he was there for about a month or so, and he was staying there at the time, and she and I were out in the front, and we looked up towards the house, and all the main floor lights were on, and I hadn't been home all day, and you know, we just come back, and we looked out, and a figure walked up to the front door and kind of looked out at us, and it was completely backlit. It wasn't a shadow, but it was a solid kind of a black mass. And looking outside, and I actually pointed to her and said, "There's my dad. I think he doesn't like it when people run their motors." Because outside, I remember he had a fight with my neighbor when I was a kid about that. And my dad's weird. He's got a lot of stress. But in any case, I thought that he was going to come out and yell at us to turn the motor off. But we saw the figure turn around and walk back into the house, and it had a sort of an unusual gait to it, the way it walked. But I kind of looked at it and thought, that's kind of weird. And then I said goodnight. I walked around to the back of the house, and it had just recently snowed, and nobody had come outside or anything. There were no footprints. The yard's fairly long for a little piece of property like that, and nobody had gone through the yard. So when I went in the house to check, you know, I thought I was going to bump into my dad coming outside. There was no one there in the house. The house was completely quiet. And when I called out and, you know, shouted hello, there was this it just kind of stopped. I remember that sensation, and my brain trying to process this at the time, thinking, oh well, he must be upstairs having a nap. But then I thought, well, no, I just saw him walk to the door. And so I grabbed one of these huge medieval broadswords we had in the house. I was trying to brandish it and walk around and be very threatening. And obviously, if you look at me, I'm very not threatening. I was trying to, you know.
You too can have your crazy paranormal investigator.
Exactly. Trying to find whoever was in there, and God knows what I would have done to him if I found him. The sword, I don't even know. But anyway, I was down there, and none of the windows had been broken. Nobody was in the house at all, and nobody had left the house. And we both saw this figure walk through the house. Then the phone rang, and it happened to be my dad, and he said he was coming back. And I said, well, were you home 10 minutes ago or at any point today? He's like, no, I haven't been home all day either. So when I told my friend the next day that what we saw wasn't in the house, she absolutely flipped.
If you're in any doubt whatsoever as to what you have learned, let's just recap on where this evening has gone. First of all, we discussed what we do and why we do it. We've introduced you to the tools of the trade.
Time to go.
Yep. Are we set? Are we done?
I believe we are.
We are too.